Good evening, everybody. I believe we've started the live stream. Yes, correct? Yes, right. Good evening, members and officers, and welcome to the meeting of full council here this evening. I'll just hand over to Sammy to run through the housekeeping. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you to all those attending the council meeting this evening and to those who are watching this meeting live via our YouTube channel. To those who are present with us this evening, I would just like to run through some brief housekeeping rules with you. Please could we ask that you use the hand sanitizer when entering and exiting the room this evening, and you will find sanitizers located within the room should you require to use these during the meeting. We ask that face coverings are worn when moving around the room and are only removed when you are seated or standing to talk on an item. We are not expecting any test fire drills this evening. If you should hear a fire alarm, please make your way out of the room and down the stairs, where officers will assist you to the evacuation location. This can be found across the road outside of the Star Hotel. Anybody requiring help in the event of an evacuation, please make yourself known and the relevant assistance will be provided. Please could I ask that all mobile phones are either switched off or put onto silent mode. Members, I will remind you that should you wish to speak this evening, please raise your hand and wait for myself or the chairman to acknowledge you, and your name will be added to those wishing to speak. When called to speak, you will be required to press the button on your microphone in front of you, which will turn red when active. Please can we ask that you speak both loudly and clearly into the microphone so those watching live can hear you. When voting this evening, members, this will be undertaken by a show of hands. Thank you, Leader.
Thanks very much, Sammy. So we'll move on to the agenda. The first item on the agenda this evening is apologies for absence.
Thank you. We have apologies from Councillor Cordina-Ackenbach, Councillor Gaylor, Councillor Wells, Councillor Graham Carpenter and Councillor Haken this evening, and Councillor Stenhouse. Thank you.
Item 2 on the agenda, members, is any declarations of interest? No, can't see any hands raised. Okay then, so we'll move on then to item 3 on the agenda, which is the appointment of Mayor for the municipal year 2021-22. And it gives me great pleasure to propose that Adrian David Thompson, one of the councillors of the Borough of Great Yarmouth, be and is hereby elected Mayor of the said Borough for the municipal year 2021-2022.
I'll be delighted to second that, Councillor.
Are there any other nominations? Then I'll put the proposal to the vote. All those in favour? Sammy? Against? One against. And abstentions? 9 abstentions. Thank you. Then the vote is carried. Thank you. Members, there'll just be a short break while the the new mayor is robed and then comes back in. Thank you.
Your Worship, may I ask you to make the declaration of acceptance of office?
I, Adrian David Thompson, having been elected to the office of Mayor of the Borough of Great Yarmouth, hereby declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. Fellow councillors, thank you for the confidence you've shown in me in electing me as Mayor of the Borough of Great Yarmouth. I've enjoyed the last 4 months as Deputy Mayor, and I look forward to the next 8 months as your Mayor, upholding the traditions of this fine office. Thank you very much. We will now take item 4 on the agenda, which is the election of Deputy Mayor for the municipal year 2021-22. Do I have any nominations for Deputy Mayor?
Yes, Your Worship, I'd like to propose that Councillor Graham Robert Plant is elected to the position of Deputy Mayor for the municipal year 21-22. Thank you.
I will call upon Councillor Penny Carpenter to second that proposition.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and I wholeheartedly support this. Proposition. Thank you.
Are there any other nominations? Councillor Trevor Wainwright. Please stand.
Sorry. I'm just following Councillor Carpenter. She didn't stand, so I just not standing. We will not be nominating to the position for the municipal year 21-22. although clearly it was our time under the present agreement. We will now wait until May 23 when we will take back control. As a new Deputy Mayor, I find it incredible that Councillor Plant, as Deputy Executive Leader of Norfolk County Council, Deputy Leader of Great Yarmouth Borough Council, Chairman and Deputy Chairman of various committees.
Sorry, Your Worship, I've got to raise a point of order here. This is a statement. This is nothing to do with the election of the Deputy Mayor. The council, we've got a proposition, and they've not. The Councillor Wainwright is not proposing anyone. I thought it was just a proposal and a seconder, and we move to the vote. Could the monitoring officer please thing? We all know what Councillor Plant does. Look, we all do lots, do you know what I mean? But can you please advise, please? Thank you.
This is just a vote, and there isn't really any platform for debate.
Point of order. Just point of order. Tony, Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can I just ask for clarification, where does it say in the Constitution that there should be no debate on this? Could the monitoring officer please point the clause out within the constitutional standing orders, please?
If I could just say that this wasn't going to be controversial. It's literally about a minute, basically. I've got a few words to say now. It may not be what it says, it's just a proposal, but at the end of the day, His Worship Adrian Thompson, Councillor Adrian Thompson, is in the chair. And I would presume, as Mayor, if he wishes me to just carry on and finish, he can.
Councillor Wainwright, if it is just a few moments long, please carry on.
Thank you very much. Chairman of various committees and member of numerous working groups will be able to fulfil his role, something I feel we'll have to give. Since 2001, it has always been a practice to alternate the mayoralty between the two main parties. Of course, during that time, we have seen UKIP councillors and a UKIP mayor, and independent councillors, one of whom has been appointed this evening. I wish Adrian well, and I'm sure David will be very proud. This practice has carried on well, but it was never laid down in the Constitution. The Constitution Working Party was held on the 25th of February 20, where the following was considered with regard to the protocol for the nomination of the Mayor and Deputy Mayor. It was agreed at this meeting that a further consultation working party be arranged to discuss and agree the terms for the protocol for the nomination of the Mayor and Deputy. Unfortunately, due to COVID, this meeting has still not taken place, although a hold invitation has been arranged for Monday the 25th of October, when hopefully any new protocol can be agreed and included in the Constitution with a recommendation to full council in December. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Wainwright. We will now put the motion to the meeting that Councillor Graham Plant is elected Deputy Mayor. All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That motion is carried. The Deputy Mayor-elect will now retire to the Ranbury Room. And she'll mask.
Your Worship. Your Worship.
Sorry. Councillor Gill.
Could I need a mic as well. Could I ask that the officer responsible, I've forgotten what the name is, look into the Constitution about the objection and what Councillor Wright said, that there's no platform for speaking. And I don't think I've had 2 copies of the Constitution, and I don't recall ever seeing it.
Constitution Working Party on the 25th of October. I understand there's a Constitution Working Party on the 25th of October. And the lady said that will be on the agenda.
Just further to that point of order, Your Worship, if I may. I think I think what happens at a Constitution Working Party is for them to look at for things for the future. What we're saying is here and now is that they tried to stop a member from speaking on a debate. All I asked was, where in the Constitution at this moment in time does it prevent a member from actually speaking on this particular resolution? Because I've looked through it and I cannot see anywhere where it stops them from saying. That may well be debated, but I'm asking for this point in time, which is relevant for this meeting.
Well, in fairness, I mean, I didn't actually close him down. I chair the meeting. I let Councillor Wainwright speak at this meeting. So that'll have to come up with a further. I can't make any decisions on that now. But as this meeting, Councillor Wainwright was allowed to speak, as I said so.
Mr Deputy Mayor, may I ask you to make the declaration of acceptance of office?
I, Graham Robert Plant, having been elected to the office of Deputy Mayor for the Borough of Great Yarmouth, hereby declare that I take the office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it, according to the best of my judgment and ability.
Should do.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the councillors for voting for me and allowing me to take up this office. I promise I'll hold it dear to my heart and make sure I'll do as best I can going forward. Thank you very much indeed, councillors.
We'll now take item 5 on the agenda, which is the appointment of a chaplain for the 2021-22 municipal year. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to inform you, the Council, that I have appointed Canon Simon Ward to be my chaplain. Ladies and gentlemen, the next item on the agenda is Mayor's announcements, and I wish to make the following announcements. The charities I've chosen this year are the Caister Lifeboat, the Royal British Legion Great Yarmouth Branch, the Samaritans, the Great Yarmouth Branch, and the 901 Troop Marine Cadets. We have arranged some charity nights to take place to support these charities, and there will be a quiz night here on the 2nd of March. The Civic Ball will take place in here on May the 6th in the form of a ceilidh. The Civic Carol service will take place on the 15th of December in the Minster, and the Civic service will be held on the 24th of April 2022 at Filby Parish Church. And at this point I would ask the Leader of the Council to update us on the former Mayor's charities.
Thank you, Your Worship, and congratulations on achieving that position, and to Councillor Plant for becoming Deputy Mayor. Yes, Your Worship, as you know that Councillor Haken did support 3 charities, which were Dial, Go Ahead and Coastwatch, and to let the council know that the Conservative group, and I've cleared it with the 151 officer, will support those charities out of their ward budgets, so they will receive £1,750 each. And that's what I'd like to say. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
We'll now take item 7 on the agenda, which is items of urgent business. And I've not received any urgent business this evening. So we'll move on to item 8, which is the minutes of the last meeting. The council are asked to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of July 2021, and these can be found on pages 7 to 22 of your agenda pack. Would any member like to speak on the accuracy of those minutes? In that case, can I have a proposer, please?
I propose the minutes, Your Worship. Thank you.
And a seconder, please?
I'd like to second them, Your Worship.
All those in favour of those minutes? Okay. Any against? Any abstentions? Those minutes are confirmed. Item number 9, the list of committee membership 2021-22. Members, the revised list can be found on pages 21 to 23 of your agenda, and I call upon the leader to present.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The changes are highlighted in yellow, and I propose those changes to the committee memberships for 21-22. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Councillor Camden. All those in favour? Oh, sorry. Councillor Wainwright, sorry.
Thank you, Worship. Just for clarification, and I mean, I haven't got any problem with this person being on, which is yourself, but obviously you're now the mayor, but you're on the Environment Committee and the Appeals Committee. It's always been in the past that the mayor is obviously a non-political role and hasn't sat on any committees, and that's been the practice with Councillor Gill and other councillors, other mayors since probably 2015 when this started, the committee system. So I just wondered why it's changed, and is it in the Constitution, or is it just we can do it? I mean, we've never done it before, and all of a sudden, you know, the mayor is sitting on committees, and I find that strange because it's never been allowed in the past. Otherwise, I would have put Councillor Gill on committees, but quite clearly we didn't, and it's, as I say, it's never been done since 2015. So why the change now? Not that I've got any problem with you being on the committees.
Well, thank you.
I just want to know why it's changed.
Could I ask the Monitoring Officer to respond, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. In fact, the rule hasn't changed. The Constitution provides at Article 46.5b that the Mayor is precluded from sitting on standards and regulatory committees, the regulatory committees being Licensing and Planning Committee.
Councillor Gill was just in first. Councillor Gill?
Your Worship, I know I'm getting old and my hair's gone grey, and I've been here 35 years, like a couple of other councillors sitting here, but that has never been the case. We have never had a sitting mayor on any committees. He's got too many other responsibilities, and he may eventually have a problem if he sits on a committee as the mayor, because the mayor signs all the legal documents in the end if it needs signing. And I would suggest, I don't mind you being on any committee you want to be. In fact, I think you'd be a good old member of any committee. But as far as I'm concerned, it's never happened. And I know the constitutional officers pointed out the minutes, but this council is now being run by the constitutional officer, and we're not getting our fair share.
Councillor Carl Smith.
Yes, Your Worship. When the changes happened, and obviously Councillor Gill was obviously went back to the Labour group, the Widdicombe's changed, and obviously Councillor Haken is now an independent, and each independent, I believe, is under the Widdicombe system, is entitled to 2 seats on those committees on the list I got. So I had to put those members onto those committees under the Widdicombe system. That is what has been used by, and that is the reason why. So if obviously Councillor Thompson was a member of the Conservative group, then he would not have been sitting on any committees. So if I can just clarify that, that is why I had to put Councillor Haken on 2 committees and Councillor Thompson on 2 committees, because that is what came on the Widdicombe list that I was given to sort out on the thing, and that is and I had to follow that. That is what I was told. I did challenge that, as the Chief Executive knows, and the Monitoring Officer, but I was told no, that was the list and I had to work to that list. I know Councillor Gill, you just moved as you went back into the Labour group, and can I say nice to see you back in the Labour group as well, Councillor Gill, but you moved automatically across the committees you were as an independent, but because of the Widdicombe list, independents, as you well know, are entitled to sit on committees. Thank you.
Any more comment on item 9? Councillor Myers, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just seeking clarification. I was under the understanding under Widdicombe that you had to be a member of a group to get representation onto committee seats. An individual is not a member of a group. A group is 2 or more. Now that's, as far as I'm aware, has always been since I've been an independent, and members of the group that I've been in has allowed, as with Councillor Talbot, allowed me Widdicombe representation on that. As an individual, I've never known individuals to come under Widdicombe. Now, I may be wrong, but I've never heard of it before. Thank you.
Any more comment on item 9? In that case, we have a moment.
Thank you, Your Worship. I mean, just to be really brief about it, that's not correct. As an individual, you are entitled to a seat or seats, depending on the Widdicombe. Imagine if we had a council made up of 13, 14 independents. It would be a nonsense to say they're not part of the Widdicombe. So that's not correct, Councillor Myers.
Right, we're still on item 9. We have a proposer and a seconder for the list of committee membership. All those in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? That motion is carried. Item number 10, the appointment to the working groups. Members, the revised list can be found on pages 24 to 26 of your agenda, and I call upon the leader to present.
Once again, Your Worship, the recommendation is highlighted in yellow, and I so move the recommendation. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll support that, Your Worship.
So item number 10, we have a proposer and a seconder. Any other comments? Now, when you vote this time, can you please raise your hand slightly higher? Sammy's struggling to see the hand. So all those in favour? And against? Any abstentions? Our motion is carried. Item number 11, the outside body representations. Members, the revised list can be found on pages 27 to 30 of your agenda. And again, I call upon the leader to present.
Thank you, Worship. Once again, members, the changes are highlighted in yellow, and I so move the recommendations. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder?
Once again, Your Worship, I'll second that.
Any comments? All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That motion is carried. Item number 12, the Climate Change Outside Body nomination. Members, this report can be found on pages 31 to 32 of your agenda, and I call upon Councillor Penny Carpenter to make the proposition.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of the Environment Committee received a report on carbon reduction and the pathway to net zero on the 9th of June 2021. And as part of that report, information was provided to these members about the Norfolk Climate Change Partnership, which was established in January 2020. And I ask that the Council appoint Councillor Paul Wells as the elected member to represent Great Yarmouth Borough Council on this newly formed outside body.
Do you have a seconder for that?
Yes, Your Worship, I'd like to second that proposal. Thank you.
Any comment? All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? That motion is carried. Item number 13, the Service Committee decision list for period 2nd of June 21 to the 27th of July 2021. Members of the Service Committee decision list for this period can be found on pages 33 to 41 of your agenda. Does any member wish to speak on this decision list? And just to remind the members that this is here for members' information only. Call upon the leader.
I'd like to propose that the Service Committee decision list be accepted.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Any comments on this? All those in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? That motion is carried. Item number 14 on the agenda, the Rough Sleeping Accommodation Programme bid, Housing First scheme. Members, I must remind you that there is a confidential appendix associated with this report. This appendix must not be discussed during the public meeting, and I call upon Councillor Grant, the Chairman of the Housing and Neighbourhoods Committee, to present.
Thank you, Your Worship. Following consideration at the Housing and Neighbourhoods Committee, this report seeks approval for the necessary expenditure and general fund borrowing to deliver a Housing First scheme as part of the Council's approach to delivering significant reduction in rough sleeping. The COVID pandemic highlighted the scale of rough sleeping and the number of individuals in insecure housing at risk of rough sleeping across the borough. The Rough Sleeping Strategy and Action Plan 2020, produced in response and adopted by full Council in July 2020, identified the need for a clear pathway approach that ensures that rough sleepers' accommodation and support needs are assessed to ensure they can access accommodation which meets their needs. In considering this pathway approach, it can become clear that there is a gap in existing provision for rough sleepers with high and complex needs within the existing or planned provision. To meet this need, a new Housing First model scheme has been developed to provide 5 self-contained properties where rough sleepers will be able to accommodate for up to 2 years. These properties will be bought and repaired to ensure the homes in the schemes to a required standard. Integral to the scheme is the provision of personalised, flexible support offer, reflecting the higher need of support needed. That will be a 1 full-time post to support the 5 individuals who would be housed at one time through the scheme. at any one time through the scheme. The Council has submitted a bid to the Rough Sleeping Accommodation Programme for both Capital and Revenue Scheme to deliver the scheme, with a decision expected by the end of September, beginning of October. The confidential appendix provides full financial information on the costs of the scheme. This scheme complements the Transitional Housing Scheme, for which Rough Sleeping Accommodation Programme bid, and is also made for which we will need the needs of rough sleepers or those at risk or with low or medium support needs. I recommend to the Council approve the 5 recommendations which can be found on page 42 on your agendas. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Donna Hammond.
I'd like to second that, Your Honour.
Your Honour. You've heard the... Any comment on that, members? You've heard the proposition. All those in favour? Sorry, Councillor Jade Martin.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment really, as I made at the committee meeting, just a massive thanks to the officers for this report around this scheme. It's been well needed for a very long time, especially around the complex needs. So yes, a massive thanks to this council. I'm very, very proud of this, to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. All those in favour? Okay, that is a unanimous decision. That motion is passed. Item number 15 on the agenda, notice of motion. Members, the first motion to be considered can be found on pages 3 and 4 of the agenda pack. And I call upon Councillor Plant to present.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to labour this one a little bit. I'm sorry about that, but this is to ensure that this council recognises the multiple benefits that offshore wind power off the Norfolk coast presents, especially to the borough. A sustainable and renewable energy source which will assist in meeting the government's target of delivering 40 gigawatts of offshore wind power by 2030, and a major contribution to the council's environment policy, which seeks to work with partners towards carbon neutrality by 2030 and embed the ethos and practice of supporting clean growth within the economy, including investigating opportunities which help to develop the green renewable energy sector. And it's also got significant employment and skills opportunities, especially in areas like Great Yarmouth, where higher job values are in short supply. Norfolk has the potential to benefit more than any other area in England from growth in offshore wind that will require a diverse mix of skills, with an additional 6,150 full-time, well-paid jobs forecast to be created by 2032, and that has been found in the New Anglia Energy Recovery and Resilience Plan. And the Council also recognises the need for some of these projects to make landfall and grid connections in various parts of the county, involving cable routes and new substations. And this acknowledges the disruption that this may cause to local communities in the short term, and therefore supports the need for a coordinated and integrated approach to connecting the electricity generated from offshore winds to the grid. And it recognises the need for further detailed work to be carried out by the National Grid on the implications of the various options, including the wider onshore environmental implications of any transmission network, economic opportunities for those coastal areas and communities affected, and opportunities for local communities to be appropriately compensated for any impacts caused by the need for either offshore, onshore infrastructure, and would support any offshore transmission infrastructure which reduces the environmental and community impacts that the current approach, which is radial point-to-point, has on the county, subject to there being no anticipated long-term impact on the marine environment off the Norfolk coast. So the Council resolves to continue to work closely with the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, BEIS, the National Grid, the Office for Gas and Electricity Markets, Ofgem, New Anglia Local Enterprise Partnership, local councils and energy companies to progress the work needed to secure the long-term environmental and economic benefits of offshore wind, whilst minimising its impact on local communities as far as possible. Based on the Government Offshore Transmission Network review and major companies, their supply chains and local colleges to develop employment and skills strategies to ensure that the high-quality jobs set to be created in the sector over the next 50 years are accessible to and promoted to Norfolk residents. And I would add to that Great Yarmouth especially. And you may ask why now? Why is it important that we do this now? And the time is now. We have 3 to 5 years to do this. The opportunity will be lost after that, as companies may decide to shift north. If Norfolk and Suffolk prove too difficult to develop out, short-term disruption for long-term benefit to our economy and the people of Norfolk, expanding our green credentials. And I so move, Your Worship.
Thank you. Now we have open comments now. This is limited to a maximum of 20 minutes. So it's open to the floor. Any other? Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Worship. I only wrote
sorry, Councillor Myers, I just need a seconder at this point. I'm sorry. Can I have a seconder, please?
Your Worship, I would like to second this motion, but I request that I defer my comments until the end after other members have spoken.
That's fine. Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, it was only a couple of months ago that I wrote about the inward investment coming into Great Yarmouth, amounting to something like £240 million over the last few years. And I also wrote about the opportunities that offshore and the environmental and energy business are bringing to Yarmouth. And it is to be welcomed that the opportunities for upskilling the workforce within Great Yarmouth and improving their income only reflects through the expenditure within Great Yarmouth and then improves a lot for everybody else. So I'm in fully supportive of this, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity for all the people in the workforce in Great Yarmouth. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. Councillor Tony Wright.
Thanks very much, Your Worship. Just really, this resolution is fairly innocuous and certainly one that the Labour Group will be supporting, as we've done over many, many years. I mean, obviously, it's a concern that we're going over exactly the same things where we've supported for years, coming on economic development and in other forms as well, where we've supported the offshore wind energy of abatement. Just wonders why the resolution has come forward here today, whether or not it's to do with the fact that North Norfolk District Council have got concerns over the land side for the cable and is trying to put pressure on them to actually give way and agree to the landfall of the offshore cables to come forward, because I know that may well be a difficulty. But obviously we look at these statistics, and I mean I have raised them before, Your Worship, and certainly in respect of the projected growth in full-time equivalent jobs of over 6,000. And that may well seem not a small amount, but it is quite a large amount of full-time, well-paid jobs. What they term as well-paid, obviously, is open to conjecture. But what I would suggest is that probably the vast majority of the jobs that may well be coming forward will probably come from within the industry. And over the years, we've seen a considerable number of projects with promises of thousands of jobs. For instance, the Outer Harbour, which I was very, very instrumental in getting for Great Yarmouth, the funding for Great Yarmouth. We were told there was going to be over 1,000 jobs created. I'm yet to see the figures that prove that point. Here we've got another 6,000 figures, and that looks good in print, and I wish it would come to reality, because the unemployment statistics in Yarmouth are certainly too high. But the one most important thing, and I think the Councillor Plant alluded to this, is in question of the skills and the skills needed. And I've raised this on many, many occasions. What my concerns are is that once again we find Great Yarmouth at the bottom of the league table for skills, and I pointed this out from an international report which gave us the dubious privilege of being 462nd out of 462 authorities in the skills. There's a huge amount of work to be done on there. And what was disappointing was obviously the fact that we saw withdrawal of funding from the colleges in Great Yarmouth, which obviously decimated some of the projects that they can actually hold. But I'm hoping that East Coast College can actually can add to the skills base, and I'm sure under their leadership they will do so, Your Worship. But I still remain sceptical about the amount of jobs that will be created by this, because the majority of the jobs that are created within the offshore wind industry are within the construction side, and we know all too well that the vast majority of the goods are coming from other parts of the country and indeed other parts of the world, where we've heard that some of the turbines are being produced. So as far as this is concerned, Your Worship, we will be supporting this because it's something that is dear to the heart of the Labour Party locally and nationally in terms of the environment, and we will be given that full support to go forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Any other comments? Councillor Camden.
Thank you, Your Worship. And if I can just...
Point of order. The seconder didn't request to... He did? Oh, well, I apologise sincerely. I'm getting deaf in me.
Thank you, Councillor Gill.
Councillor Camden.
If I can just firstly congratulate you, Your Worship, and yourself, Mr Deputy Mayor, on the appointment of your new roles in the borough. Your Worship, we know that Great Yarmouth's energy sector has a lot to play for over the coming years and is perfectly placed to capitalise on the opportunities we see on the horizon. If anything, this pandemic has underlined the importance of resilient energy systems and how clean energy has to be at the core of our economic recovery locally and nationally. With more than half a century of offshore experience in oil and gas and 20 years in offshore wind, Great Yarmouth has a unique blend of port, infrastructure, expertise, skills and innovation to now play an important role in delivering the integration needed to meet the UK's transformational ambition to net zero greenhouse gas emissions. Now, I know that Great Yarmouth can take a leading role in tackling the challenges we face globally as we look to the future. The borough's clean energy sector could be at the forefront of renewing the local economy post-pandemic, leading the charge for a green recovery. This all relates with the £120 million Great Yarmouth Third River crossing, linking the A47, our port and successful enterprise zones. The bridge will maximise investment, regeneration and economic growth in the borough, directly supporting the energy sector. Our deep water port at Great Yarmouth has invested £12 million in upgrading key storage areas and equipment, and this Conservative-controlled council's ambitious plans to develop an operations and maintenance campus for the offshore energy industry will reduce costs and maximise efficiency. So due to mine and my colleagues' enthusiasm for offshore wind and the benefits that leading on this sector would bring, I both fully support and second this motion, Your Worship.
Members, you've heard the proposal. And could I ask Councillor Graham Plant to sum up, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. And thank you to Councillor Camden for his candid words as well. And I do listen to what you say, Tony. I think over the years we have had some opportunities lost and some opportunities that we've picked up on. But this is one opportunity we shouldn't miss out on. It's one that we should go all guns for. We should be making sure that we're linked into all the energy aspects that this town can take up and that we are putting the infrastructure in place to make that happen. And so I encourage everybody to vote for this motion so that we can get a letter off to the bays. Thank you.
Members, you've heard the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous decision, that is carried. Members, the second motion to be considered can be found on pages 4 and 5 of the agenda pack. And I call upon Councillor Wainwright to present.
Thank you, Worship. Well, the motion is that this council writes to the Right Honourable Theresa Coffey MP, Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, and the Right Honourable Rishi Sunak MP, Chancellor of the Exchequer, to reverse the proposed cut to universal credit of £20 per week, £1,040 per annum. This cut is being called the biggest overnight social security cut since World War II. Doctors, charities, and even some Conservative MPs, including Ian Duncan Smith, the architect of universal credit, are calling on the government to reverse its decision. The Trussell Trust estimates that nearly 250,000 parents on universal credit fear not being able to sufficiently put dinner on the table for their children when the £20 cut comes into force from October the 7th. Many of these parents living in Great Yarmouth. In Great Yarmouth, 18.4% of the population was income deprived in 2019. Of the 316 local authorities in England, Great Yarmouth is ranked 32nd most income deprived. Of the 61 neighbourhoods in Great Yarmouth, 21 were amongst the 20% most deprived in England. In June 2021, there were 14,441 people claiming universal credit in Great Yarmouth. Many of these people in work and 5,511 children living in poverty. And this is in the 21st century. Of these claimants, 3,775 were actively seeking work. Approximately 1/3 of claimants were in work and working on 0 hours contracts, and the remainder being residents with long-term health issues, pensioners needing a top-up to their pension, who now see the triple lock increase being cut, despite this being a manifesto pledge, and some residents with disabilities. At a time when inflation is currently at 3.1% and rising, energy costs expected to increase by approximately £160 per annum, fuel costs rising, national insurance contribution increasing in April 22, this universal credit cut could not come at a worse time and ultimately will hit the lowest paid the hardest. This will not affect the people that have got money. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and that is a fact of life. The Resolution Foundation think tank suggested that 4 in 10 households on universal credit faced a 13% hike in energy bills in the same month the benefit is being cut by £1,040 per annum, £20 per week. This cut is creating nervousness, and many residents fear and worry about what is going to happen. And how can they manage when I have £20 less per week? How am I going to put food on the table? How am I going to heat my home in the winter? Many will now have to turn to food banks, which are already operating at maximum capacity. And I know many Labour members have been delivering food parcels on a regular basis. And I went to the food bank on the Magdalen last week to deliver some parcels, and I can tell you the increase in food banks is horrendous. It shouldn't be happening. But that's what we've got in Great Yarmouth at this time. Our food banks are at maximum capacity. And this cut will make it worse. I'm sure that members opposite will say that this was always meant to be a temporary uplift. and people should get well-paid work to compensate. But that work will not come easily in a place like Great Yarmouth, and we just heard just on the last resolution, 6,000 new well-paid jobs. It could be, if it happens, it could be years and years. In the meantime, the work is not there. And with the summer season now drawing to an end, and potentially a further increase in caseload with the end of furlough, I'm sure that £20 a week is not a lot of money for some people, especially some councillors with allowances of £800 a week. But for others, it is a matter of survival. And I urge all members from whatever party, whatever independent, to actually support this resolution. I don't hold my breath, but as I say, it's a real disservice to the people of this borough.
There is time, Councillor Wainwright, please, if you can sum up your 5 minutes.
It's a real disservice to the 14,000 odd people in this borough who will lose out on this cut.
Thank you, Councillor Wainwright. Could I have a seconder for that motion, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Williamson.
I second the motion and reserve my right to speak later.
Thank you. Again, it's now open to councillors. Again, 20 minutes. And Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, the £20 cut doesn't seem a lot of money, but it is to people who are on a very, very low income. The statement by the government was turning around and saying universal credit is there to encourage people into work. This will affect people already in work, where universal credit, and they take 63 pence out of every pound extra that the person earns whilst is in work. So there's actually a disincentive to get a better job if you're going to lose that kind of money. The government seems determined to continue to press ahead with the HS2, which the costs are spiralling and out of control and way above what they already are, but we knew that would happen. And unfortunately, I think this £20 cut is mean. They've got the money to do it. And with less people being unemployed, the actual costs are coming down to maintain the £20. So I support this motion, and I don't think this government is cutting £20 off at all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wainwright. Councillor Talbot.
Thank you, Your Worship. There seems to be this stigma of the people on benefits. A lot of people assume that people on benefits don't work, and that's simply not the case. There's a lot of people who are on universal credit who do work, and that this £20 a week that they are facing losing is the difference potentially between heating and eating. It's a mum choosing between potential lice treatment for her children who've caught nits at school and tampons for herself. It's mean and it's cruel, and it shouldn't be happening. We shouldn't be seeing people forced into food banks when this extra £20 a week ensures that they can feed their children well or they can heat their home. Councillor Wainwright was correct when he said about the gap between rich and poor is getting larger. Only these days it's not so much a gap, it's more of a canyon, because the richer are getting richer and the poorer are getting poorer. And this is just a way of punishing the poorest in society for being unable to go out and get a £50,000 a year job.
Thank you, Councillor Talbot. Councillor Smith-Clear.
Thank you, Your Worship, and congratulations. When you meet proud women who've worked all their lives and yet have still been robbed of their pensions and early retirements, by that I mean 1950s born women, who've also lost the protection of the triple lock, seen it snatched from them, then to hear them talk about their fears and painful experiences of losing even more money from cuts to universal credit, it becomes even more heartbreaking. In fact, it's not just heartbreaking, it's morally wrong. To place those women into a state of spiralling poverty and despair is a final and degrading kick in their teeth. Or actually, it just shows complete contempt to those already struggling to survive by making them suffer even more. In a town like Great Yarmouth, where life expectancy, as we know and is proven, in certain areas is reduced, and the use of food banks, as has already been pointed out, is seen as being the norm, however unacceptable it is, then surely any decent person would want to put a stop to additional suffering. I have relied on £20 to survive. And I'm sure that there are people here that might keep their heads down now that know that feeling, that desperation of just having enough money at the back of the sofa or that money in a pocket that could just put food on your table. That's not throwaway money, that's real, genuine survival money. So to lose that £20 will crush those already hurting, those already struggling, those already unable to survive. For the sake of those people, and don't let's use the term people, let's use what they are. For the sake of those mums, those wives, those grandmothers, those people that we know we represent, for the sake of them, please, for God's sake, support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith-Clear. I call upon Councillor Fairhead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and congratulations. I could start with lots of numbers of the users for the food bank, but they are increasing on a weekly basis. We have food banks in Great Yarmouth, in Galston. We have food banks in the schools and out in the rural areas. And it appears that these are needed, very, very much needed. It's okay to say that being set up by individuals, which are good and needed, but this should not be necessary in this day and age. Again, the referrals that come through to the bigger food banks are again a pass the responsibility to somebody else. Ever since universal credit was introduced, the food bank needs have grown. Myself and lots of my fellow colleagues do a weekly run and deliver out the parcels to the homes. Sorry. These families are so grateful, but also made to feel embarrassed by receiving. Oh, I'm so silly about this, sorry. Receiving them, numbers will increase through the winter because £20 a week will be needed to try and keep them warm. And I know already the food bank, which I go and help out, have already been giving people money to keep their electric and their gas on.
Thank you, Councillor Fairhead. I call upon Councillor Gill.
Your Worship, I would like to congratulate you in becoming the mayor, and I hope it's as easy as my time was. Can I just say I'm absolutely flabbergasted that this is happening. And I hope the Conservative group will be voting for this, because they've always been, well, they've always told me, from the very highest to the very lowest, that they are the party of business. Now, if you work out the £1,046 by 14,500, that is a lot of money that's going out of this town. And you know, in the end, they don't spend it going to Caribbean holidays or anywhere else. They spend it in Great Yarmouth. They don't go running off to anywhere else. These are people who can't even afford the bus fare from the barracks up to town, £1.50 a go. So, you know, I would hope that you support this. And I know for a fact there are people sitting in this room who haven't had 2 brass pennies to rub together. I'm fortunate, I have a pension, and there are a number of other people sitting in here who have pensions that will never ever worry about 20 quid a week. But we should support this, we should all support this, because we care about the people of Great Yarmouth.
Thank you, Councillor Gill. Well, we have three councillors to speak now. It's Councillor Smith, Councillor Martin and Councillor Bernard Williamson, and then Trevor will sum up. So that's the running order now. We haven't got no more space left. So could I call upon Councillor Carl Smith, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. As we know, as part of the COVID emergency packages, the government introduced universal credit weekly payments by £20. Now, this should be viewed in the same light as other payments, direct business grants, furlough payments and self-employed support scheme. The uplift, like furlough, etc., is due to stop in October. The cost of this uplift was approximately £9 billion for circa 18 months, or £500 million a month. Now that we are moving back closer to normal, we need to focus on getting people back to work and creating better paid jobs and opportunities. And Councillor Wainwright did give us some figures, and I do have them here on the conditionality regime. Searching for work, 3,662. This is in the Borough of Great Yarmouth. That's down from 4,875 this time last year. 2,579 working with the requirements. No work requirements, 4,117. Working no requirements, 2,735. Planning for work, 262. Preparing for work, 904. Like I said, at this council, we do support our residents, and those claiming universal credit actually also given, or eligible working tax credit, also received a one-off payment of £500 during this pandemic. Just to let the members know that as a council, we actually give council tax support payments to those on low income. Working age, there are 6,537 residents, of which 5,877 receive the maximum amount, which costs around £5 million. The cost of the Great Yarmouth Borough Council is approximately £470,000 per year. Pensionable age, 4,152, with again 2,907 receiving the maximum amount of 92.5%, which will give them cost £3.2 million, cost to GYBC is approximately £30,000 per annum. So the Conservative group now will not be supporting this motion tonight. What we're doing and what the government is doing is creating hundreds of thousands of newly full subsidised jobs for young people through the new £2 billion Kickstart scheme to give young people the best chance of getting a job. Double the number of work coaches to 27,000, giving job seekers the personalised and intensive support that they need to move back into work. Helping long-term unemployed into work so more people can benefit from the security of a good job. Investing in our job entry targeted supported scheme, helping more than 125,000 job seekers into work. Launching a lifetime skills guarantee so that people can get the skills that they need at every stage of their life, meaning that they can retrain and find new well-paid jobs to build back better. Tripling the number of traineeships for 16 to 24-year-olds, giving them the best start in securing a good, skilled job in the future. Incentivising businesses in hiring more apprenticeships so people can train for the skills our economy needs. And we've heard that tonight with our first motion that we put forward.
You're nearly at time, Councillor Smith.
Expanding sector-based work academies, helping those out of work develop the skills they need to re-enter the jobs market. So the plan for jobs is working. And like I said, the Conservative group will not be supporting this motion this evening. Thank you.
Point of order, Chairman. Point of order.
Councillor Tony Ryan.
Could I move suspension of standing orders for this one item, Your Worship?
I will take advice on this. Are we suspending standing orders? Right, okay.
Your Worship, I'll second.
We can. Right.
Your Worship, if I could be of assistance, it's on the relevant standing order with regard to this is on page 77 of the standing orders, 31.12, motions without notice, and it's item M, to suspend a particular council procedural rule. Which
It's a notice. Your Worship, this is not a notice, this is a notice on motion, and I believe it was agreed through full council that the time was set out, like we said beforehand. I believe the only time we suspend standing orders is for the budget meeting, and we didn't do that last year, so I see no reason why that should happen here this evening. And if it is, I believe it would take a vote to do that, Your Worship, and I'm quite happy to take a vote, but
yeah,
obviously...
we are just waiting for the monitoring officer to clarify. You got that as well, have you? Okay.
I have now.
Okay. Right, in response to Councillor Wright's point of order, the advice from the monitoring officer is that we are going to take a vote on suspending standing orders.
Your Worship, so why was the point of us bringing the motions that that we did about discussion motions? Because the party, the opposition, agreed with that when it went through. As far as I'm aware, I can't remember anyone voting against it. And now, surely, if they wanted to suspend, it should have been said at the start, and not when we're now almost, and in fact, I'm sure now we're over the 30 minutes of discussion on this motion. I'm quite happy to take the vote, but obviously it's a majority vote, so we'll take the vote.
Your Worship, just really to come back on that one, I think, yes, there may well have been agreements, but that's why we have in the Constitution, in the standing orders, this is again because on occasions debates need to go outside of the Constitution in terms of times, and I think that's an agreed. In any political party, in any club, it's agreed that you can suspend standing orders. And I think on a debate as urgent, as vital as this, that is vitally important. We have a full discussion. Now, I accept that the opposition party don't agree with this, but let's have the debate about this. Let's don't stifle debate on this. What have you got to be afraid of? You can give figures and facts and figures, but you don't stack it up in terms of other issues. And I think this will come out within the debate itself. So I urge you, please support this.
Right, again, I'll reiterate the advice from the monitoring officer that we will take a vote on suspending standing orders. So all those in favour of suspending orders, please.
Just for this item.
Just for this item. Sorry,
It's 15. If they suspend standing orders for the duration of the meeting,
did you hear that? If we suspend standing orders, it's for the duration of the meeting.
Fine, yeah. Fine.
Okay. So again, all those in favour. And against?
Afraid of the truth.
That motion is lost. If we can move back to the item, and it's Councillor Martin to respond. Just to point with Councillor right. I mean, I'm chairing this meeting. We're not stifling debate. I mean, we're well over the time now, and we're prepared to carry on. I'm prepared to carry on. It should be debated, of course it should. And Councillor Jade Martin.
Thank you, Your Worship. I can't believe that we're even needing to convince people to support this. Seems pointless, but I ask you to back this motion because let's not focus on removing the vital support and instead let's focus on considering the full impact that this reduction will bring. 38% of adults and families on universal credit are in work. So Boris and others saying that this cut will get people back into work shows how really out of touch they really are. And apparently also this Conservative group. Millions of hard-working families are having to rely on universal credit to top up their wages. How is this right? Cost of living is going up while there is a real terms pay cuts to many jobs. Now there's increases to national insurance, energy bills. Working people cannot catch a break. This government is condemning millions to a winter of misery. As previously mentioned, 20 quid may not seem a lot, but to those on low incomes it can make all the difference. And come the rest of these price hikes, it will mean a lot more, probably to people in this room as well. The Child Poverty Action Group says this cut will raise child poverty to 1 in 3 and push 800,000 into poverty. This is not levelling up. We've seen the increase in food bank use during this pandemic, but reliance on food banks was happening prior to this, showing us that change has been needed for a very long time now. Work should pay and pay enough to live comfortably. It shouldn't be a choice of which bill should I pay or do we have heat or light. Children will sadly suffer. Removing this money will not only impact those already struggling, but also our local economy, as Councillor Gill has already said. People spend this money and put it back in our local cafes, shops and communities, and this will impact us all. Yes, choices need to be made, money has been spent that we don't have, but let's put aside the vanity projects, contracts for buddies and ridiculous consultant jobs being paid thousands of pounds a day. We have 250 million for a royal yacht, but can't continue to support those trying hard just to get by. Let's get our priorities sorted. This will impact the worst off in our society. We should be ashamed. We need to focus on in-work policies to tackle work poverty. Now this is not the right time for this cut to be made. People are suffering mentally and physically. The system is broken and people are broken. But this pandemic has showed us that we can be a compassionate society that wants to help each other. Let's build on this. It is not too late for this government to act with compassion. A joke as that may seem, and understanding the pressures that are facing low-income households. Looking at the Tory MPs, even they are undecided about this cut, with six former DWP secretaries urging the Prime Minister to abandon this cut, which includes, as mentioned, Ian Duncan-Smith, who introduced the universal credit system. Now this speaks volumes on its own. We can't support this heartbreaking cycle of food banks and debating which bills are to be paid. We should all be entitled to certain rights and certain standards of living, education and housing. Why are we not collectively fighting for this? Abandon the cut, cancel the cut and keep the lifeline that will give families the stability that they need, and do what's right for the people of Great Yarmouth.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. I call upon Councillor Bernard Williamson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much indeed. Listening to Councillor Smith, you would think everything is going to be solved overnight by having some strategies around skill upgrading. That takes years to do. This is the reality of today. And the data I'm using comes from the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, a well-respected trust which investigates and analyses government data. Not our data, government data. 140 constituencies will see more than 1 in 4 families affected. 21% of working-age families will be affected across the country, across those. Over 400 constituencies are expected to be affected by this cut. We're talking a vast thing. This isn't just about Yarmouth. This is right across the country. This £20 cut may not seem much, but it affects 5.5 million families, people, getting this £1,000 a year cut. 5.5 million. 500,000 of those will be pulled into poverty. 200,000 of those are children. So that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about training at the college and things like this. We're talking about real poverty coming after the 7th of October. 60% of the people receiving the UC are working across the country. The taper doesn't work for them. It's designed to take the money off them. 66% of the proportion of people on universal credit, some of them can't work. There's 1.7 million people out of the 5.5 who are too old, infirm, ill, or have got medical reasons for not being able to work. So they can't do what Teresa Coffey said, go out and work a couple of hours and earn £20, which is rubbish, of course. You have to work nearly 9 hours, an extra day a week, to get that £20 because of the taper. So there's 1.7 million people unable to improve their situation. They're the people we're talking about. And how does it affect Great Yarmouth? Well, 31% are on UC or tax credits. 51% of families in Great Yarmouth are affected. So over 6,000 families. A massive number of people are affected by this £20. So it may not seem much to Councillor Smith or the rest of the Conservative councillors, £20, but it's a real difference between putting a meal or meals on the table for young people. And of course the other thing which impacts upon this is that the wages in Yarmouth are way below the county average. And looking at the figures which I've got before me, we're about 20% lower than the average wage in Great Britain. And that's the average wage. Anyone knows about maths and averages? It's not a median wage, it's the average wage. So the low wages in Yarmouth are way down there, as we know from the employment statistics.
Councillor Williams, could you sum up, please?
I will indeed. So this is about looking after the very vulnerable people within our society, the weakest in our society, the people who need help. And you judge a society by the way it looks after the people who are poor, the people who are weak, and the people who need help. And this Conservative government is doing the reverse.
Thank you. I call upon Councillor Wainwright to sum up.
Thank you, Worship. Well, I've listened to this debate and I just can't believe the indifference shown by the Conservative group. They have no compassion, no feeling, no nothing. And all Carl Smith stands up and spouts about is a vast array of figures that will have absolutely no impact on the people's lives that are going to take this cut. None whatsoever. 5,500 children in poverty. I bet there's nobody sitting around this chamber tonight with children in poverty. Is there? I bet there isn't. But I can tell you there is in the borough, children living in poverty, not knowing where the next meal's going to come from. It's an absolute disgrace. Councillor Myers was absolutely right. A lot of these people are working 0 hours contracts. Some of them have got 3 jobs and they're still on universal credit. Councillor Talbot made exactly the right point. It literally is between heating and eating. That's what it's all about. Heating and eating. When you go home tonight, you'll go into your nice warm houses, switch on the central heating, probably open a bottle of wine, have something nice to eat. There's a lot of people out there who aren't going to do that. It's going to be a long, cold winter. Mike Smith-Clare made exactly the point as well. The WASPy women. Some of these women have waited 6 years to get their pension. They still have to try and get some sort of universal credit uplift because they can't make ends meet. And the triple lock's gone. A manifesto promised by the Conservatives. Broken. Marlene, very emotional, of course. And food banks in schools. Is anybody here who's got a child in a food bank in the school? Yeah. I bet you, well, Paula, her child goes to a school with a food bank. In the 21st century in Great Yarmouth, we have food banks in schools. In schools. Michael talked about the loss of £15 million a year, basically, is going to be lost to the local economy. That's how much the universal credit we're going to lose. So basically, that's not going on savings, that's not going on Caribbean holidays. That's going to be lost. Lost to the local economy, lost to the little corner shops, lost to the Asdas, lost to whatever. It's lost. 15 million a year. Carl Smith, as I say, he spouts figures. I mean, probably Brandon Lewis wrote them for him. I mean, I don't think anybody was listening to them because they just made absolute zero sense. At least when Bernard Williams spoke, the figures made sense. They were statistics that affected people in this borough, affected their lives and their livelihoods. You've just got no solution at all, none at all. And this bit about all these people getting this £500, it was a legacy benefit. The only people that got it were people that were on working tax credits at the time. It wasn't just handed out to all and sundry, it was £500. And I know that we paid it out in Yarmouth, not to a huge amount of people. Jade made it absolutely right. Levelling up. We're levelling up for the rich, but we're levelling down for the poor. And there's not many poor people sitting around this council chamber tonight, but they'll be quite happy again to go home to their nice houses, and these people in 2 weeks' time will be suffering. I just think it's an absolute disgrace. And let's not forget, you know, we've been through a pandemic. This pandemic hasn't finished. Did you see the cases today? 34,000 again, 250,000 a week. 180 odd deaths again today. It's not going to go down. It's not going to get better for these people, and they're going to suffer. And, you know, just a final on this, I mean, we talk about the big red bus. You remember the big red bus at Brexit? £350 million it was going to come. That's what it's going to save a week. A week. 350 million was going to go into the NHS, but that's all gone out the window. Never happened. Do you know how much that is? That's 18 billion a year. 18 billion. To keep the universal credit uplift for the whole of the people on it in the country amounts to 6 billion a year. A third.
Can you sum up, please, Councillor?
Well, I think I'll finish summing up, but I'm absolutely appalled that when we have this vote now, that all these people sitting in front of me and to the side are going to stick their hands up against it. And I think somebody made the point, I don't know how you go to bed at night and sleep. But you probably do, because you couldn't care less. You could not care less about the people of this borough and the 14,441 people that will be going to bed hungry and cold in the winter.
Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor
Your
Whiteman.
Worship. I would like to move a recorded vote. If they are proud of what they're about to do, let them show they are.
Second that.
Stand.
Second that, Your Worship.
A vote on the recorded vote. Right, the advice given is that we will now take a vote whether we have a recorded vote or not. So, all those in favour of having a recorded vote? $15. Can you just keep your hands up, please? Because we. Right, it's 15, and the advice given that we need 16 in order to force that forward, so that there will not be a recorded vote. Right, if we can move on to the vote, you've heard the after quite an emotional debate, you've heard the order, please. You've heard the motion. All those in favour of the motion, please. All those against? That motion is lost. Order, please. Councillor Gill.
Could you just turn your microphone on, please? Just turn your microphone on.
I'm sorry to do this. I would have normally done it at the beginning but we had the obviously elections. But Councillor Stenhouse isn't very well, and normally the council sends a letter and they say a thing to her saying that we're thinking of her and hope she recover soon. So I would ask the council to do that. Thank you.
I can't see a problem with that. Yep. Right, if we can move on to item number 16, which is any other business, and I'm not aware of any other business to be discussed tonight. And can I just ask the monitoring officer to speak at this point, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. I did just want to answer, come back on the... I did just want to answer the point raised by Councillor Wright earlier in the evening, which I think has come up before. So if you look at Article 31.1, this is in relation to the election and the discussion debate on an election. So Article 31.11 describes the tasks of the annual meeting, which we're effectively carrying out this evening, as electing the mayor and electing the deputy mayor. So there is no motion as such. There is a nomination, there is an election. So in constitutional terms, in constitutional law, this is known as discussion out of order. So discussion and debate at a council meeting is only permitted on a motion that is properly before full council, which is to say the matter before the meeting must be expressed as a motion in positive terms. So to adopt a certain course of action, to do some act, or to declare a particular attitude. So when that type of motion is passed, it becomes a resolution, and that isn't the case, obviously, with an election. And another difference is that a motion is capable of amendment, whereas obviously an election is not. So that is the constitutional reason why there's no debate on an election. That's the explanation. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, moving on to item number 17, the exclusion of the public. If any member wishes to speak on any items of confidential business, then I will move to exclude the public. If no one wishes to speak on a confidential item, then this can be confirmed in public. Does anyone wish to speak on any of the confidential items? 19? Number 19? Yeah. In that case, we move to item 19, Confidential Service Committee Decision List for the period 2nd of June 21 to the 27th of June 21.
17,
All those in... Do I need a proposal on this?
We just need to confirm that item 19 was just for noting.
Right, let's do... Right. Just to confirm, really, that item 18, the confidential appendix, this is for members to note only. And then again to move to 19, the Confidential Service Committee Decision List for the period 2nd of June 21 to 27th of July 21. Again, do I need a proposal or just...
I move that they be accepted, Your
And
Worship.
a seconder, please.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
And all those in favour? And that motion is carried. Well, that concludes the business of the evening. Thank you all for attending. We have the Mayor's reception on Friday night in this room. If anyone is coming along, I'll be pleased to see you there. And just remind you, it's lounge suits. And at this point now, I declare this meeting closed. Thank you for your attendance.